What is the site created?
Okay, well, I already sent them a.
Oh.
Yeah, I got one. I just need to tell them what it is.
Okay. I mean, it works if they're just working.
It does? Okay, you set it up? I'm just going to close the.
Actually, I'm about to.
Okay. Let me kill this one then. You sure it works? Am I killing this one?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Can you see me? Okay. Actually, that's one too bright. So.
Okay, I'll ask them now.
Yeah, it's on. I can see it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now you can close that one.
All right. Closed.
Can they see me? Just don't like close it or something. Okay?
Yeah,
Can you hear too?
It's going to write this.
Yeah, it's not going through the camera. It's going through the FaceTime.
Okay.
Right? So just put it in.
Okay.
All right. Takes some time to figure out how to start a Google Hangout on it. All right, so sorry about that. We will make sure at least that those of you who are not online know to scroll through the first 25 minutes or whatever to jump to the third video, to the third of the videos. Okay, so yes, you can see us. All right, so now somebody keep attention to all of the pinned posts. Regarding Project 4 is basically done and out, and we still have a few more Project 3s to finish grading, because it was a little bit more complicated pulling from different places and with the extra credit, etc. So, but at this point, it will be done by tonight. It will be done by tonight. There are a couple of the TAs that directly emailed some of the students, right? That's what they ended up doing.
Yeah.
There are some
to make sure the submissions are there.
To make sure that all the parts of the submission are there. That also caused some delays in getting those answers in. So Project 3, we really think that it will be done by today, given where we are in terms of numbers. How many are still pending? So that's Project 3. Project 4, the TAs, many of them have final exams as well, or are graduating and have family in town and everything. So I know that they will be pushing hard on getting that out of the way as soon as possible. And I do think it's much easier in terms of grading.
Yeah,
so that shouldn't be a big deal. So you should get those in time. The final is going to be graded at some point after all the finals are in. So I'm going to kind of debug the grading process so that once they all come in, I can get the grades done as soon as possible. But I don't want to promise that you'll have them on Friday. My best case scenario is that on Friday I tell you what your grades are, I tell you what the answer sheet, what the answers are, and then you tell me if you have a problem with the grade, so that I can fix that before the official deadline for the grade, so that I can take a look at it and revisit anything, as opposed to dealing with any more complex grade change processes in case indeed there was a need for correction. Sometimes there is, most times it's because I don't know how to add by heart. So, I'll 5 plus 7 ends up being 14. So, but in this case, I'll just blame Excel and Microsoft. So if there is a problem. Okay, so that's as far as in terms of the grades, and then also the Piazza and the participation grades. At some point after the final exam, I'll also get the statistics both from Piazza and from Udacity. I guess the Udacity ones, they're more exact. There is a fixed number of quizzes, and you've either done all of them or done a certain percentage of them or not done them. In terms of the participation, I will look at kind of overall trend in terms of whether you were or were not participating in the class, and then based on that, and I'll make it public exactly what ultimately the formula ends up being for the participation. But my intent is really not to kill your grade because of the participation. My intent is to create opportunities for your grade to be boosted based on the participation. But if kind of overall looking at the other grades, your average is high B, but you've really been active, and we're trying to help others, etc. That should create an opportunity for a boost, as opposed to the other way around. Speaking of the the helping others, etc. So I saw that there was a post, the thank you Connor post. I explicitly mentioned Connor last time, but really there are a number of students, and some of them are explicitly mentioned in the in that post that really helped a lot. And what I think is amazing is the comment that's also on Piazza that I don't know whether that kind of experience, whether these kinds of interactions would have existed among students if this were not an online class. And you guys have done your share of classes, and there really aren't those kinds of interactions in terms of, you go to your office hours, and at office hours, the TAs, they help, and you end up maybe a little bit more interacting with some of the students that you end up with at the same office hour session. But that's about it. I have never seen the kinds of interactions between the students, and it's not just from the whatever it was, 5, 10, 12 students that were really the most active ones, but even students that really weren't very active on Piazza, just posting a random like, okay, I was stuck for a while, and this is what ultimately worked for me, and I'm just sharing it. You don't see those kinds of things on class. I've just been blown away by that kind of interaction between students that these platforms enable. I think they're really powerful, and I just don't think that students on campus enter and participate in the classroom with the same mindset as what you guys do. So I think that that's a benefit to you. Okay, so now maybe a little bit more technical conversation. So probably on everybody's mind is what to expect from the final. There was that suggestion that maybe I come up with 30 questions, and I'm not going to. So you will have more than 10, less than 15 questions. Kind of right now, really more like somewhere between 13, 14. That's what I'm looking at, and kind of playing a little bit of a shuffle with what exactly to do. If you take a look at what's happening in part 3 and 4, there are a total of 10 lessons. There's 6 in part 3 and 4 in part 4. And so you can kind of expect that, okay, 10 lessons, we'll kind of have on average, something like a question per lesson. And you know by now that not all lessons have the exact same level of complexity and of depth. So it's not just the formula of the length of the lesson, it's really the technical depth. In some of the cases, I spend a little bit more time on some just higher level overview, and in other cases, actually explained a little bit more detail. And so that should really give you some idea of what you can expect, what kind of distribution in terms of the questions you'll see. So likely you're not going to get 4 questions on the last lesson and 1 on the first. If anything, it'll be the reverse. That should give you some idea. But in terms of point values, the questions will be overall as a question will be 5 or 10 point questions, and then they'll have sub elements so that you're not all or nothing, losing gaining or losing points in those kinds of increments. So that will address the suggestions from last class to do that at smaller granularity, the grading, but in terms of the entire questions, they'll be at that level. The final will be 2 hours. I know I said 2 hours and 20 minutes, but it won't be. So basically, it'll be 2 hours. It's really time for much less. So even 2 hours will be more than sufficient. You will. And given the contributions to the grade and everything, it's fair. So one important thing, and I guess I should really just send an explicit email also, as opposed to just putting it on Piazza in an answer somewhere. So the window for the final exam is from 3 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday, this coming Saturday, until 3 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. So 3 p.m. Eastern on April 25th through 3 p.m. Eastern on April 30th. Why ProctorU allows you to do more, I'm not sure, or less. I'm not sure really. We noticed the AM part later, so we fixed that. But it seems that ProctorU is still letting you register for later exams. As long as there's somebody to proctor you, that's great. But at some point, I'm going to pull whatever the submissions are and start grading, and that's going to be the problem, right? So make sure that you complete the exam by then. I will, or at least let me say, put it this way: start the exam by then. Like, for all honesty, I will be on a West Coast flight at the time, so. I'm not going to start grading it at PM sharp on Thursday, but I will start doing it at some point later at night on Thursday. So think that if ProctorU is letting you, if they're going to be proctoring you starting at 3 p.m. Eastern time, that's fine. But don't push your luck, because I'll end up grading and sending responses afterwards, and so then there really won't be an option of what to do. So that's as far. Are there any grading related or logistics, final logistics related? I guess I have this open.
I still can check the page, the ProctorU page.
Yeah, and honestly, to both of us, it's a mystery of how you guys get on ProctorU. We can't figure it out. So there's supposed to be some instructor login option, and I have not been able to find it, and neither has Hogan. So it's a.
But I cannot see.
Yeah, so to make things worse, whatever you guys thought was bad with ProctorU midterm time around, now ProctorU is going through some updates. so we can't really see. They told us it's been set, so that's it. I honestly hope that we'll survive the final, and that you will survive the final, and that ProctorU in this form at least will not be part of this experience, because it's very stressful for everybody involved. Okay, so now I guess Can you still see us? I think maybe, okay, this was 25, 22 minutes ago. I think the link is no longer. Okay, so these are all, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at all of the old posts. Never mind. Okay, is there a question here? Okay, so project 3, again, let me repeat for those of you that took some time to switch to the correct link. Project 3 will be graded by tonight, and will be. Promise. No, you guys, they're fine. They finished their part of the homework. The ones that are not here, they have not finished grading, so that's why they're not here. But yes, that is the expectation when at least when we looked at the numbers, they look like they're going to be graded tonight, and so so that's where we are. We expect that will be done. So the fact that you don't have a grade for that yet is because we haven't sent any. Okay, another logistics-based question regarding the final was what to do during the lessons. I provide multiple papers, and then, but not all of the content of those papers is discussed in the video. So just let me reiterate, no, you do not need to, you're not responsible for the portions of the papers that were not covered, was not covered, I'm answering and then at the same time responding. So the portions of the papers that were not covered in the videos, no, you're not responsible for those. So I'm not going to do that to you. Okay, let me just figure out what I've done. This is like all lost you, haven't lost you. Okay, Dan Holmes, hopefully you can visit. And so, okay. Let me see, what's this one? Final exam. Okay, that's the same question. Let me see. What else did I have here? Make sure you do like with ProctorU, you remember to save the questions, the answers, not the questions, the answers. Okay, unless there are any other live questions coming in, I'm going to make some comments about some of the other questions that have popped in. First of all, Project 4 related. Is there any kind of just summary question or anything like that?
No.
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the multi-threading part is kind of awkward, but I don't want to comment on this.
Okay.
But it's doable. There is a way to implement multi-threading.
Well, a lot of them have completed it. Yeah. So. Okay. There was one discussion, question 1455, in terms of Sprite and caching, and so the student that asked the question then ultimately figured it out, and it was a really nice summary by William Mason in terms of what exactly happens. So some of them with these distributed file systems, in general distributed state management, the key techniques, either you maintain a single copy of the state or of the data or of the file, and then just worry about where that copy is going to be placed. So worry primarily with issues such as placement, so as to minimize some metrics, minimize latency or to minimize copying overhead, or you start allowing multiple copies of the data, whether it's whether that's a form of caching or whether those are more permanent, more copies of the data, like in the case of replication. But then you have to deal with how you maintain consistency and what is the consistency model, and those kinds of questions. And what you choose is really going to depend on your workload. It's going to depend on the access patterns of your workload, whether it's mostly read intensive or mostly write intensive, whether it's and then what kind of semantics are tolerable. Is it acceptable for the application not to have the most current consistency semantics or not? Clearly, if we're talking about Facebook, if we're talking some of the more the social media type of distributed state sharing applications, there is a lot of opportunity there to not make strict consistency guarantees. So, whether everybody sees my update now, not a big deal. Whether somebody sees some updates out of order, it's really not the end of the world. But in some other cases, like if it's a banking application, or if it's a or even in terms of certain types of, maybe even for certain types of file systems, it may be much more critical. So the important things in terms of, in general, when we think about the file systems and the file system semantic, is that typically we can differentiate between what makes sense to do for the files versus what makes sense to do for the metadata, so for the directories, and that's very common practice in terms of what kinds of rules you implement, whether they'll be caching or copying or replication, or what are the timeout values that you'll associate with certain operations, how much you'll relax the consistency, just because how easy it is to then merge potential conflicts or resolve potential conflicts. You can always flag certain things and push things back to the user and say, whoops, problem, right? And if I'm going to just give or either explicitly notify the user that there is a conflict, or sort of just pretend that maybe that issue was dropped, so the user doesn't really have guarantees that the updates will be successfully incorporated into the system. But ideally, for any service to be useful, we'd like to, perhaps to the extent possible, build in some ability to automate certain things. And so from that perspective, it makes sense to do one thing for files versus for directory services. So the nice thing about the Sprite paper is that it kind of walks you through an example of, here is a concrete set of data that we, or they rather, the authors of Sprite, looked at. And then based on this data, they made certain conclusions as to what are the specific design choices that they're going to make. So in principle, that kind of process, it's really important to adopt, that when you're designing, you really need to design what are you designing for, so, right? And then whenever there's certain trade-offs, because I've iterated it multiple times, the correct answer is the depends answer, but the one that's not acceptable. So all of those depends situations, you need to understand those depends situations and then fit them to the workload characteristics, to the specific point you're designing for. So that's why that paper is nice. And so the summary that the answer that William puts forward puts also this type of the specific design choices in Sprite in the context of specifically Dropbox. So there's some fine line between file system versus a repo, and just a version control repository or backup versioning system. But ultimately, it's about some shared data management. It's just the kinds of access patterns you see. The kinds of shared access patterns you see differ. So for something like Dropbox, you wouldn't necessarily, or for something like a backup management system, that you wouldn't expect so much of a shared access, like for a file system. But you do have certain notifications and ability to resolve conflicts and those things. So let me see what else. I see some like unresolved follow-up in the exam, but I don't see what that one is. Okay. Now I'm not really sure what this one was. Okay, there was a question on the consistency, and I'm going to have to find a way to pull up what the question was without
transcript.
Yeah. No, I got it. To find. There's a question on quiz 2 from Mr. with the shared memory. Okay, let me see what the question is. I don't understand why consistency model for quiz 2 is not sequentially consistent. For P3, M1 is still 0 and M2 has been updated to 1. For P4, M1 is still 0 and M1 has been updated, M2 has been updated before M1. Okay, so sequentially consistent. So sequentially consistent. What that means is that if one of the processes in the system observes a specific ordering of certain events, regardless of whether that ordering matches the real-time wall clock ordering of those events or not, but if any one process observes certain events in one particular order, then according to sequential consistency, the rest of the system, everybody else, has to see those events in that specific order. So, regardless of whether or not they care for, that causes any change ultimately in the answer of the computation or not, right? So regardless of whether it's going to have ultimately some kind of impact on the bottom line, whether write to M1 happened before write to M2 or not, this may be completely unrelated events, right? However, based on sequential consistency, if one of the processes saw these in a particular order, then everybody else has to observe the order of those particular operations in that way. So with the strictest strict consistency, that particular order has to actually match the absolute real-time perfectly synchronized wall clock order of those events. With sequential consistency, this is relaxed, that it doesn't have to match that order. It can match any order, but whatever order is seen by any one process, that should be the order seen by everybody else. And this is in principle what happens on an actual shared memory system. And so exactly the order in which threads running on a single CPU, exactly how their write operations were interleaved and how they ultimately hit the memory and were reflected in memory, it may not exactly match the exact order in which those particular operations were issued, just because we have out-of-order caches, we have reordering at the memory, we have out-of-order execution, we have how exactly data from caches gets pushed into, gets flushed, how exactly memory controller ends up reordering memory references. So, particularly there's no dependency between these instructions. Nothing. It's not going to. It's not going to try to resolve a particular issue, but it will try to, the sequential consistencies with the processes executing on a single shared memory system sitting behind a single memory controller will actually see. And then obviously that's overkill for many situations. If I don't care, if the order of these particular updates doesn't really have any kind of impact on my computation, and enforcing the order in the distributed case all of a sudden is much more expensive. Maybe in the single shared memory case, it's not really that expensive. So, let me just enforce it, and then it will be just simpler to reason about. I'll never have to worry about, are these two operations going to be related or not? Are they, ordered or not? Are they causally related? I don't have to worry about any of those things. But in distributed case, I have to pay so much for maintaining that order in terms of distributed messages, and latencies impact both overheads and impact on performance. So it doesn't make really sense unless it's going to have such an impact on the application. It doesn't make sense for us to guarantee the sequential ordering, so we go for something less. And in fact, in reality, these distributed applications that you use today, they use something way less than the consistency models that we talked about in this class. I left something for 6210. So there's things like eventual consistency and and other more relaxed
causal consistency.
Well, causal we do in class, but then going
timeline
consistency. Yes, there are a lot of different variants that are tried to kind of make some kind of happy medium between something that's useful for developers to reason about and something that's acceptable in terms of overheads. Okay, so this one was in office hours today. Okay, any new questions?
Sample is financial. There is one comment by Eric.
Which question was it?
1457.
1457?
Yeah. The office hour.
Oh, it's the office hour. Okay. Simple final claim question 11. Let me now find sample final exam. Okay, sample final exam. Where did I put those? Exam questions. Okay, sample final exam question 11. 11, okay. And now the rest of the question. The sample final exam question 11 are the potential answers for P3 after 2.3, 1.3, and 2.4. And no, I think I'm missing half of this text. Oh, there it is. Okay, that's fine. For sample, the potential answer for P3 after time slice 3. Is the right sensible processor candidate? Is this execution causally consistent? Okay, so is this execution causally consistent? No, the execution is not causally consistent because if we take a look on the first read, actually, if we take a look, the write to M1 on processor 1 and write to M1 on processor 2, these two are parallel up cells. Let me just make sure that. Oh, this one is 2. I'm sorry, this one is not 4. Okay, so the write to M1, the first write to M1 that writes 2 to the location M1 is causally precedes, that's at P2. Start from scratch. The write to M1 of value 3 on processor 1, P1, is causally related to the first write of value 2 at location M1 that happens at P2. So because of this relationship, if we take a look at what happens at processor 3 observes these two operations in the reverse order. So processor 3 thinks that The value of M1 was first 3, and then at a later point it became 2, so that the first write that happened at processor 1 happened afterward. So because of that, that's not causally related. So now the question is, what are legally accepted options? The first question that, the first option you're asking is for P3 are 1 and 4. Let me see whether 1 and 4 are legal. 1 and 4. Yes, 1 and 4 are legal because P3 could have seen only the first write at P1 and then has actually seen the later write of P4, also from P2, so that one's valid. 2-3 is 2-3 valid. 2-3 is valid because that matches the consistent relationship. 1-3 is 1-3 valid. 1-3 is valid because these could have happened in a time shifted. So 1 and 3 are related, have to be ordered based on causal consistency, given that they come from the same processor. So 1-3 would have been acceptable answer. Just think of it as if like time shifted, the first read was observed after that first write at processor 1 happened. And then 2-4. 2-4 is also accepted answer just because of that exact same reason. And the only one, so 2 and 4 have to be ordered in a specific way. And that's the exact same way because they're on the same processor, and that's the exact same way that they're seen at P3. And so the only one that then you are missing are that P3 could have seen the updates, the second updates that are performed by P1 and P2 in the reverse order than what P3 is asking. So basically, also 4-3 is legal for causal consistency. Okay, so I'm just going to put this here so that it stays here because Joseph, who's been scripting the answers during office hours, his laptop got repurposed. And then Joe Howard saw the transcript for one lesson, and a few videos from later lessons were posted in Udacity. Any updates on transcript on other videos? Actually, no. No, I mean, I can double check, but everything that I saw so far regarding the transcripts, it wasn't a predictable process, and it wasn't clear to me that either Udacity has made a commitment to us or we to you that those transcripts are going to have to be there. So I think because somehow it's not carved in stone that they have to be there, it just haven't been there. So sorry, I'm not sure. Given that I've seen bits and pieces where it seems that they've kind of randomly interpreted whether it's my accent or the script or the transcript writer's technical background, certain terms. I'm not sure whether they're 100% useful or not, but hopefully, if it's so it seems that from what you're seeing, it's only P4L1 that's missing from the transcripts. Everything else I think was already there, but I'll double check. I'm not sure. Okay. So any other updates, questions? Okay. There were a couple of questions regarding the either videos, or either quizzes or final exam, simple final exam, or just arbitrary questions that I've been kind of answering alone over the weekend. So I guess if you look through tags, final exam, or lectures, as you're prepping for the quiz, for the exam, if you have any questions regarding the material, put them up there, and I'll try to get to them in a timely manner. Since there are no more office hours, and it's hard to otherwise arrange for a visit. Okay, so first time, second time, third time. Okay, so again, we will clarify that you should be looking at the part 3 of the week 16 office hours, and so we're reduce the effective time to 40-ish minutes, but or so. I'm not really sure when we started. But I'm assuming that at this point, it's really a combination of final exam logistics and any content regarding the final exam, and we can continue resolving questions for the final over Piazza. Last comments to you, and I will put this out in a message as well. But any kind of feedback, yes, please make sure that you complete the official course evaluation survey for my benefit, the TA's benefit, the college benefit, most of all the dean's benefit, because he can then sleep better. He can come in. But beyond that, if you have any feedback, please pass that to us. There were a lot of, over the course of the semester, there was a lot of useful feedback in the sense of, it would have been nice if this was organized in this way or a certain way, or if if you didn't have to download a new VM for every single project, for instance, and then set up sudo so as to fix your favorite editor. Even comments like that were pretty useful, and I captured at some point a post that tried to summarize this. But anything that you have, please let us know. Also, feedback on the modes of interactions we've had. So, we went with this format of office hours. Not sure that it's always the most effective way. So certainly forcing 8-9 people in a room to stare at a camera when there are no questions coming in doesn't seem always to be the case. But anything that you have feedback-wise, please let us know. We are already trying to kind of reorganize. We said that already. Reorganize some aspects of the assignments so as to make it easier for everyone to go through the projects, and for us to be more effective at helping everyone. And we will organize other aspects as well, making sure that there's no ambiguity with questions on the exam, or that there are no multiple choice answers provided for a question that's actually not being asked, or those sorts of things. But if there are any other more fundamental things, let us know. The good and the bad, right? So thanks for sticking through with the class. Good luck studying for the final, and best of luck at the final and in the program and everything else. Okay, so bye. The rest of your TAs came in on a let's come and finish grading all of project 3. There is Meng to run. All right, so bye guys.